Vice President Al Gore, if I may call on you, you've been leading this for more than 40 years, shaping global conversations on climate change, encouraging the development, adoption of low-carbon technologies. You've promoted climate education and awareness among the youths and the activists. In fact, I've come across many of these young people who have been inspired by you to join environmental sustainability work in business. And you've also recently launched satellite technologies to track emissions, hold companies as well as countries accountable for their pledges. Johan and Joita, they've tried to make the science simple for us. It was not easy. We gave them only 10 minutes. It is a very complex subject with a lot of intertwining issues and implications. But you've got a lot of experience as a politician, in business, as well as being an advocate and activist. And today I'd like to ask you, as a global leader, what advice do you have for all of us who want to contribute to be that force for good? What are some of the effective tools and levers that you think we should focus on and pull on as a global community?
Well, thank you, Kim Hui. I appreciate your leadership. Thank you for inviting me to be on this wonderful panel. And I want to compliment Johan and Joyita for their presentation at the beginning. And I'm certainly looking forward to my friend Yo-Yo Ma playing at the end of this panel. You know, we tend to emphasize the bad news, and there is unfortunately a lot of it. But there's a lot of good news as well. And I just want to cover some of it. In my country, we passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which is primarily a climate act, $369 billion, which will actually be much larger than that because the heavy lifting is done by tax credits that are very long-term, some of them actually open-ended, and the early investments that have already been triggered by it give a great deal of many reasons for believing it's going to be much larger than $369 billion. So I'm very encouraged by that. Secondly, in Andrew's home country, Australia, the elections changed the climate policy of Australia. And then the elections in Brazil changed the climate policies in Brazil. So there is good news. We do have some momentum. The European Union has been mostly successful in balancing the need to respond to the short-term energy crisis caused by Russia's evil and cruel invasion of Ukraine, balancing that short-term crisis with the need to accelerate the longer-term transition to renewable energy. There is still a risk that it will get locked into fossil fuel infrastructure that actually increases emissions in the years going forward, and we have to be careful about that. There's more good news as well on the technology front. As Andrew said, we have the technologies we need. The International Energy Agency says for a 50% reduction, we have all the technologies we need with proven deployment models already available to us. The next 50% after 2030, we have the technologies that are in development. We see the pathway to improve them. We know how to get there. We've already seen last year, if you look at all the new electricity generation installed worldwide, 90% of it was renewable. It's now the cheapest source of electricity in almost the entire planet. Secondly, electric vehicles for the transportation sector. The penetration has reached the 10% level in multiple geographies. That's the point where you often see an inflection going much higher. Norway's already at 50%. All the automakers are going in that direction. Business is leading. Andrew and Mark, of course, are two wonderful examples. There are many others. And in the WEF this year, I have noticed a huge increase in the amount of passion and attention being paid by CEOs and other business leaders. It is for real. But as the Secretary General said in his brilliant speech earlier today, we are not winning. The crisis is still getting worse faster than we are deploying these solutions, and we need to make changes quickly. Emissions are still going up. All these promises of the last few years to cut emissions are still going up. When are we going to bring these emissions down? And just to put the science in a slightly different context, People are familiar with that thin blue line that the astronauts bring back in their pictures from space. That's the part of the atmosphere that has oxygen, the troposphere, and it's only 5 to 7 kilometers thick. That's what we're using as an open sewer. If you could drive a car straight up in the air at interstate highway speeds, you'd get to the top of that blue line in 5 minutes. And all the greenhouse gas pollution would be below you. We're still putting 162 million tons into it every single day. And the accumulated amount is now trapping as much extra heat as would be released by 600,000 Hiroshima-class atomic bombs exploding every single day on the Earth. That's what's boiling the oceans, creating these atmospheric rivers and the rain bombs and sucking the moisture out of the land and creating the droughts and melting the ice and raising the sea level and causing these waves of climate refugees predicted to reach 1 billion in this century. Look at the xenophobia and political authoritarian trends that have come from just a few million refugees. What about 1 billion? We would lose our capacity for self-governance on this world. We have to act. So in answer to your question, I would say we have to have a sense of urgency much greater than we have yet had, and we need to make some changes. We've heard about divides at this conference between the North and South and the East and West. There's another divide, increasingly, between those who are old enough to be in positions of power and the young people of this world. Greta Thunberg was just arrested in Germany. I agree with her efforts to stop that coal mine in Germany. Young people around the world are looking at what we're doing. They look at the World Bank and they say, oh, you've got a climate denier in charge of the World Bank, so why are you surprised that the World Bank is completely failing to do its job? Secretary General says that. Everybody knows the World Bank is failing badly. Now we have the COP process. Okay, what do I say to these young activists that I train around the world when they come to me and they say, are you okay with putting the CEO of one of the largest oil companies in the world in as the president of the COP? Is that really okay? Well, it's not whether he's a nice guy or not, or whether he's intelligent. The appearance of a conflict of interest undermines confidence at a time when climate activists around the world, and I'm partly speaking for them right here on this stage, have come to the conclusion that the people in authority are not doing their job. There's a lot of blah, 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 as Greta says. There are a lot of words, and there are some meaningful commitments, but we are still failing badly. We need to have a supermajority process instead of unanimity in the COP. We cannot let the oil companies and gas companies and petrostates tell us what is permissible. In the last COP, we were not allowed to even discuss scaling down oil and gas. Can't discuss it. A lot of the NDCs weren't even called for. Are we going to be able to discuss scaling down oil and gas in the next COP? Or putting the oil industry in charge of the COP? Is that going to tell young people around the world, we've just decided to not even disguise it anymore? Let me finish with this point on the industry. You've had problems in your area where you tried to get legislation and the oil and gas industry came in and fought you, right? In my state, same thing. Every piece of pro-climate legislation at the national level, the regional level, the local level, municipal level, the oil and gas industry and the coal industry, they come in and fight it tooth and nail. And they use their legacy network of political influence and wealth to stop progress. The rest of us have to reform these international institutions so that the people of this world, and including the young people of this world, can say, we are now in charge of our own destiny. We're going to stop using the sky as an open sewer. We're going to save the future and give people hope. We can do it, and remember that political will is itself a renewable resource.